Synchronicity University has an absolutely incredible May series coming up, and this is not to be missed. Superstar astrologers are going to be with us, and all right now at Choose Your Tuition Rate, as low as just $5 a class, an unheard of rate to learn from these astrologers. I will be teaching the definitive relationship course coming up with my favorite techniques. ALEJO LOPEZ teaching a widely requested topic on midpoints, harmonics, and aspects. And Michael Luton's previous course on his favorite techniques is going to be available as a digital download. And as a bonus, you get a live Q&A class that he and I are going to do together. And look at this speaker series and these incredible astrologers, including a real superstar in astrology today, the one and only Gemini Brett. All of these incredible programs are available right now for as low as just $5 a class, an unheard of rate. Our very famous Choose Your Tuition Rate at onlysynchronicityuniversity.com. Links are in the description below. I look forward to seeing you in class. Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to your horoscope for the week of April 7, 2024. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. It is a remarkable astrological week, without a doubt. Big moves happening in the sky now. Boy, is this a very special time. The very big news, not just in the span of this week, although, yes, it's huge for this week, but it is one of the most important moments of the year, if not one of the most important moments of the decade. And I don't say that lightly. And this is something you should get used to me saying. Next week, I'm going to say that again for something else. But for now, and for this week on Monday, we are set to have a total solar eclipse taking place in the sign of Aries. And while that would be special in and of itself, I want you to contemplate, do a little visualization with me for just a second. Imagine the sky, right? The zodiac, all of the sky, all of the zodiac. It is divided into 360 degrees, okay? Each sign takes 30 degrees. There are 12 signs. That makes 360. And then each one of those degrees, each one of those individual parts further divides into 60 minutes each. And you start to see how specifically it is that we can calculate the position of different planetary bodies at any given time. And so it is truly remarkable and truly rare for us to have not just a solar eclipse, that is a total solar eclipse that is in the sign of Aries, but that hand in hand to the minute, we have CHIRON right there as well. This is significant. Now, I've been looking at the sky for a really long time. Over 30 years, I've been gazing at the sky. I've been a professional astrologer for about 17 and a half years now. I've never seen an eclipse like this. This is rare. It is powerful. And what makes it powerful is how much so many of us are set to feel at this moment. One thing I love about the sky is that it is rooted in an understanding of the divine playing out in front of us. And it was the ancients who looked at the sky and saw stories unfold of mythology, of ancient sacred energies embodied for us to ultimately see ourselves in, to understand the sky as a mirror. And especially now in modern astrology, we can consider how it is that these stories of the sky, these divine stories playing out, are ultimately our own stories. And what happens with these planetary bodies, it speaks to our earthly experience. It speaks to how it is that we each in our own unique ways is walking one of ultimately a few archetypal paths. Yes, of course, each of us is unique and we have our own unique journeys, and that is for 8 billion people to know for themselves and to only know for themselves. And yet there are certain themes that play out that unite us all, regardless of where we are on the planet or what our background might be. Now, there are many mythologies associated with Chiron, the most famous of which is how it was that he was wounded. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but just a little bit of background. There are many variations of his stories, depending on the region. But there are a few consistencies that we see. So one is that he was the son of Saturn and an oceanid. So oceanids are these mythic creatures that are part of and comprise the ocean. Together, they created Chiron. And Chiron was different in one way based on his appearance. He was a centaur as he emerged from his mom. But the other centaurs were often characterized as very beastly, sort of guided by their more primitive impulses. And they were depicted as being almost entirely horse, but just having a little bit of the upper body and head of a human being. Chiron was different because he had the entire body of a human being, essentially with human legs in the front, but it was behind him that he also carried a part of a horse. Chiron was very early on in his life. He was this natural teacher, so he was able to guide many of who would go on to be great gods and goddesses. Now, a lot of us know that Chiron became immortal, was turned into a constellation because Zeus took pity on him after he was shot in the leg by an arrow of Hercules, and Hercules was Zeus's son. However, there's another layer to this story that I think is very interesting to contemplate as well. So I'm going to go to Prometheus here. Now, Prometheus is actually a god that's been spoken of, written of. I talked about this myth recently in one of the classes I did as part of the program Outer Planet Transits. Richard Tarnas, he wrote a book on Uranus, and he actually associates so much of what we understand the astrological Uranus to be as correlating to the myth of Prometheus. How the myth goes is that Prometheus liked to hang out with human beings. He liked going down to earth, right? He felt like that's where the party was, and he really enjoyed the company of the different people that he would meet. And during his trips, he kind of realized that, you know what, human beings could really use fire. Fire would be so great for them. And he went to his father Zeus and said, "Dad, let's give them fire. Humans are going to love this." And Zeus was like, "No way. I don't want that. I don't want them having that. They need to remember that they are less than us. And fire is something for the gods. It's not for the human beings." But Prometheus just couldn't shake this feeling. And he had a very strong instinct that he liked to trust. And so he went ahead and gave humanity fire anyways. Now, this really annoyed Zeus. He did not like not being obeyed. And so he took Prometheus and he strapped him to the side of a mountain. And every day as the sun rose, an eagle would come and eat the liver of Prometheus. So you can imagine this was incredibly painful. That eagle would go away, it would be night, the liver would grow back, and the next day the same pattern started over again. Every single day, this excruciatingly painful punishment that Prometheus had to go through was something that was being witnessed by Chiron. Now, right around the same time, Chiron was teaching Hercules. In some regions, the myth belongs to Aries/Mars, but we can say Hercules here accidentally shoots his arrow, hits Chiron in the thigh, and this wound would not heal. He was in excruciating pain. Prometheus had been one of his students. He loved Prometheus as well. And so he went to Zeus and said, "I will give you my life in exchange for allowing Prometheus to live and be well and be safe. If you can forgive Prometheus enough to live, then you can have me." Now, Zeus in one way wasn't crazy about that because Chiron was a really amazing teacher. He brought so much love to his students, including Hercules and Prometheus and Apollo and many others. But the gods did take pity on Chiron as well. They could see what excruciating pain he was in. And so they decided to accept this trade, accept his negotiation. It is Hercules that goes to the mountain and takes Prometheus down. And so Prometheus was freed from the mountain, was allowed to live, although, yeah, his dad never forgot it. And Chiron was turned into a constellation that we now associate with the sign of Sagittarius. I see this myth playing out a couple of different ways. Of course, it is this sense of what you are willing to give for your healing that we see here. Prometheus, if it is that we are willing to correlate his mythology for some key themes of a Uranus transit that many of us might go through, as laid out by the very brilliant Richard Tarnas, one of our living legends, then we can see here that it's almost like pain needs to be given if we are truly going to know freedom. But more than that, I think of Chiron as deeply associated with where it is and how it is we might move our lives towards immortality and what we understand that to be. Many a philosopher has conceptualized that we here are, in many ways, as part of the human existence, there's a fear of dying. And so we will do certain things so that we can comfort ourselves on the deepest philosophical levels, of course, in more modern terms, on levels of our psyche. We will do things to affirm a sense of ease that something within us will live after we are gone. And so for a really long time, this is a philosophical thought that sort of described why it was that people had children, for example, right? That unconscious fear of vanishing and poof, and that's it, of our existence. But we can now understand that with much deeper layers, the ways in which we desire to create something, the ways in which we desire to have an impact on other people's lives, a very deep motivation might be, some would argue, that we desire to make our mark so that something within us stays after we've left this incarnation. And I've found that when we look at Chiron astrologically, very often Chiron is what needs to be overcome so that we too can leave behind something that we feel good about. It is, on the one hand, that ticket to immortality, but also freedom as well, as this myth encapsulates. And so these myths are our stories. These myths speak to what we are experiencing. I want you to think about what happens during a solar eclipse. Light fills the world, and then the light goes away. And the light is blocked, in this case completely, for about 4 minutes time. And then the light reemerges. And in the same way, if you've ever had the issue where you really didn't feel good, or you were feeling really upset about something, you were in a lot of emotional turmoil, and then you got a really good night's sleep, when you woke up, it is possible that you saw things differently. You saw yourself differently. You saw the world differently. And symbolically, that is what an eclipse encapsulates. The promise of cleansing ourselves of what was and seeing the light in a way that maybe we had not before. I recently did an interview that was published this very weekend that this video is going up with the very brilliant superstar astrologer, Gemini Brett, the one and only Gemini Brett. He makes such a unique contribution to astrology. That is an interview worth watching because he talks about the eclipse spiritually, of course, symbolically, but also the literal phenomenon of the eclipse itself. And he was saying that when you're watching an eclipse, you will see the moon go through all of its phases right there in front of you as part of the unfolding of an eclipse. And think about what happens during the 28 and a half days that we understand the cycle of the moon. And that is ultimately a symbol of emotion and emotional truth. And when we see the cycle of the moon, very often there is an emotional process that unfolds for us every 28 and a half days. And that's why it's said, if you want to affirm a habit, if you really want to ingrain it, do it for 28 days. And this is very rooted in an understanding, however unimplied that understanding might be, that it is when we make emotional connections to behaviors that those behaviors are a lot more likely to stick. Well, imagine you are witnessing an eclipse and you go through those 28 days within a span of minutes. It is remarkable to just sit with the symbolism here as to what we may, yes, cleanse ourselves of, might look different, but also what we might emotionally process in the span of a few minutes, which otherwise would take many, many days or longer. With this eclipse now, so tied with the myth and the body in the sky that is Chiron, in some way, the myth of Chiron might be something that all of us are playing out very quickly in an accelerated way. Now, for some people, this eclipse is going to mean old wounds get stirred and you're feeling all of that right on the surface. And I want to be sensitive to that. And I want to be straightforward with you. That can be hard depending on the wounds that we are carrying. And those wounds are not for anyone else to judge. They are your own. And if you feel them, let yourself feel them. It is ultimately by traveling through those feelings that on the other side, we might find where it is that we have an ability to make our mark, to leave something behind, to heal others. And on the other side of this eclipse, may find ourselves very aware of all it is that we have yet to do in this lifetime. Eclipses, and particularly an eclipse in Aries, has a remarkable way of awakening passion for your life, awakening conviction that you, right now, as you are, have a right to be present for your life. You have a right to exist. You have a right to be exactly who you are, in presence and in breath. And if that means you've got to heal something, that's fine. So some people, for this eclipse energy so close to Chiron, is going to be like diving into that emotion so that you can come out on the other side. For others, it's going to emphasize that sense of cleansing that much more. It's going to emphasize a sense of all the work you've been doing. Maybe you've been doing it for years. Now it pays off. Now you find a new freedom and a new happiness in a way that you just didn't know before. The only way out is through. And how long it takes to go through is going to be uniquely your own journey. And no one can judge your processing. How long that takes for some, it might take another 20 and a half days for the moon to come back and activate the eclipse point. It might take 6 months for the moon to be full in the sign of Aries, which it will be 6 months from now. For others, it might be longer when it is that Chiron retrogrades back over this eclipse point. And that's a phenomenon that we are going to see in the months ahead. But for many of us, I will also say that healing, that new beginning, that sense of, thank goodness I did all that work because now it pays off, because now I am me. Now I can be myself in a way I never knew before. And now I know what makes me immortal and how I'm going to take all that knowledge and heal other people. I think there are going to be a lot of examples of that. And I say that not so that we escape the work that rewarding change sometimes requires. If you've done the work, you'll know it. But if it is that instead this is an initiation into the work that you have now to do, that may awaken for you at this time as well. Now, this total solar eclipse is going to be visible in much of the Americas. I know I'm going to be gathering with a bunch of astrologers at this eclipse in Niagara Falls, Canada. And so I'll try to do some live streaming on one of my platforms, but know that if you are actually in a place of witnessing the eclipse, if it's happening where you are, then its symbolism is that much more magnified for you, meaning that its potential to be all that it's promised to be becomes that much more relevant to you individually, but also to your more local environment, community, and society. But all of us are going to be feeling this eclipse energy. It is remarkable. It is notable. It is special. And so strive to stay in touch with your own internal processes. I think it's going to be very hard not to be true to ourselves. And the key really is not to be hard on yourself, because if it is that you are being hard on you, then you're missing the point. And a part of what makes us hard on ourselves is regret. And a part of that regret is where it is that we regret our own actions, the choices that we made, whether it was assumptions that ended up creating more pain for ourselves, or maybe it was stuff that we actually did before we knew better. Remember, the fire that Prometheus gifts to the world, that represents consciousness, it represents creativity. The giving of fire itself represents humanity's leap in consciousness that took place. Now, this is true as a literal phenomenon. Think about it. Human beings are like 200 and something thousand years old. And there were key moments there, these moments of exponential growth, these sprouts that we went through. And one of them that allowed us to be where we are right now today was our ability to create fire. The gift of fire showing up for us. That leap in consciousness is possible here, certainly. But it's important to also consider that fire speaks to the fire within. The part of you that authentically can connect to your creativity, your worthiness to honor your creativity. And I think a part of this energy is going to be acknowledging where it is that perhaps we haven't been diligent with protecting our peace, protecting that inner wisdom within ourselves, and where now we might just resolve to do things differently. And so again, whether you're dealing with regret of the past or you are focused on being better as a result of your past, it is going to be this eclipse energy that invites us to take leaps forward in our understanding of ourselves, of our awareness, which is part of what consciousness is. And ultimately, on the other side of Chiron and those wounds also lies forgiveness. Now, when I say forgiveness, you don't have to forgive anything you don't want to forgive. Remember that also. And there are some things that, rightly could be unforgivable. That would be an appropriate response. But there are ways in which to embody your own power and to accept where in the past you might have been powerless, but know that that's not the case anymore. And that you can accept that where you were powerless, it was whatever was. Some of us might be dealing with some really old wounding there, but the promise is there to heal it in an instant. The promise is there to move forward, to leap forward in an instant as well. Make no mistake, this is so important. I cannot emphasize that enough. Did I say that like 5 times already? So important, so big, such a big deal. This is something that astrologers have been looking forward to for a really, really long time. And this is special. This is one of the most important months of the decade for many of us out there. It will stand out, especially in the fullness of time. Now, here's something else to consider on Wednesday and Thursday, respectively. We are going to have first Mars meeting Saturn. That's about a once every 2-year event. And then the following day, we're going to have the Sun meeting Mercury. That happens more commonly. Every time there's a Mercury retrograde, we get meetings of Mercury and the Sun. So it's not that unusual. This meeting of Saturn and Mars is set to, again, symbolizing a stirring within. There are certain things, certain wounds where the appropriate response is anger. The appropriate response is to say, I fight against this, or I'm going to fight for myself. An appropriate response is to reach a place of rock bottom, or to say, this must be a rock bottom because this low is unacceptable to me. I will not allow this person, place, thing, situation to happen again. This is in the energy of Pisces, which means universality, which means compassion, and what we're feeling is part of this. And as part of this, I'm so sorry to say, and I'm already seeing evidence of this, we may be seeing evidence of some cruelty. And this is meant to be a wake-up call for us. It is meant to show us something about what we are allowing and what's okay and what isn't. And it's inviting us to be genuinely compassionate, where it is perhaps that we didn't even contemplate that compassion was even needed. That part of us just might wake up at this time. This is energy of a lot of tears flowing and a lot of frustration, but it is designed to help us to take action. You know, my Aunt Shireen that you've seen on my channel before, she's got a lot of wisdom. I actually credit what I do now with my work and a lot of the things I teach spiritually with things that I actually learned from her. She was a wonderful aunt to have. We're a lot alike, actually. But having said that, yeah, I remember Shireen has sometimes reminded me, anger is sacred when you use it to take action to make things better. Now, I believe that if you're not taking action in support of whatever you're feeling, that anger is coming forward, you're not doing anything with it. It's, to put it lightly, a missed opportunity, but in another way, it is a disservice because that energy is going to turn in on itself and it's got to come forward in one way or another. And then it ends up coming forward in ways that are more unconscious and maybe self-defeating, especially considering that this conjunction is happening in the sign of Pisces. We may want to do something, we may want to fight, we may feel restricted, we may feel limited, but the key is to be strategic. In the face of seeing inhumanity, in the face of seeing events that are undeniably cruel, this is a real opportunity for us to instead decide where our power is and to focus on that strategically, with wisdom, with purpose, in whatever way we are called to. Now, I also want to add, I think that it is not fair to judge the ways in which we are spoken to, the things that may awaken that compassion, and the ways in which we may decide to be stirred by that compassion to action. I don't think it is fair to judge a hierarchy of things, and I see that sometimes, and I want to say, if it matters to you, it matters. If it stirs you, then it means you're meant to do something with that stirring. And it is not for anyone else to judge. The ways in which we treat, I don't want to say the least of us, but I want to say the most innocent of us, it says something about what we allow. But it also says something about the parts of ourselves that we've abandoned, and we abandon them for all kinds of reasons. And in deciding to take action, you just might heal yourself. This eclipse is in the sign of Aries, which means whatever's happening with Mars in some way connects to this eclipse. And what this tells me is that our pathway to healing is going to come through compassion. And as we are stirred to action as a result of that compassion, we may end up healing something very profound and deep within ourselves. If it matters to you, it matters. especially with energy like this. Now, the fact that Mercury is going to perfect a connection with the sun in the days following this eclipse says awareness, it says insight, it says sharing, talking, speaking, writing our journey, all mercurial things with our journey. We may end up truly understanding what it is and where it is that our work is. And perhaps it's just so that we can understand that we choose to share, or perhaps it is that the sharing itself is the tool with which we're able to do what it is that we feel called to do. Your journey is going to be uniquely your own, but mythically, it is relevant. Mythically, it will connect. Finally, I want to very quickly touch on Artemis, one of the lunar goddesses to the ancient Greeks. And the Greeks actually had several different goddesses. Pretty universally, they were women, female figures, if you will, and correlated with different phases of the moon, and they had different names depending on the region, and they had their own slight distinctions. But with Artemis, of course, one of her more vivid imagery involves the fact that she oversees archery, right? But she's also the goddess of animals, the goddess of childbirth, the goddess of young women. And I was meditating on the symbolism of Artemis and how, in many ways, her fierceness is about reminding us of the most vulnerable amongst us. And that's why she correlates with them, because even amongst the most vulnerable, there is a force of life, a force that desires to live. But she was a protector goddess, and the vulnerable among us are often those whom need protection. And so as we stare upon this eclipse and as we are stirred very deeply now, my hope is that in some way, each of us sees the archetype of Artemis as a pathway to channeling some energies that may end up feeling very overwhelming to some of us out there, especially as we are confronted with the most vulnerable in our societies, but also within ourselves, those parts of us and our stories where we felt vulnerable. How did we deal with that vulnerability? What was our way of protecting ourselves? As part of our psyche, we can strive to understand some, pretty horrific things. But for some people, a part of protection means that you become the protector. But for others, on a level of the strange ways our psyche plays out, protection means repeating those patterns, creating the pain that was perpetrated on us. And that's not to excuse any behavior at all, but it is to say that if that has ever been your story, it is now that you just might see it play out, and you just might see that there is another way. Instead of being a perpetuator, and however that shows up for you or has been showing up for you, whatever shades of that have been showing up for you, you get to choose something different, to be a protector. And that just might be the protector of that part of your story. Instead of repeating those stories within yourself that end up creating more pain and more pain that were never yours to begin with, it is now that you become a protector of the wisdom that you have gained. And that can decide some very consequential and ultimately very effective action. If Mars and Saturn meeting in the sign of Pisces is anything, it is finally addressing our own regret. But a lot of that regret comes from what took place before we knew any better. When you know better, you do better. I know lots of people have said that for probably millennia, but there are moments where you really get to feel that. You really get to integrate that understanding. That's two parts of an equation. Knowing better, but now we get a chance to own our power, to do better and to see, in some cases very quickly, how that doing blesses the collective in a meaningful way. What I love about this week for us, there's so much here. It's a powerful and meaningful astrological moment. Whew, wow, it is significant. It is huge as this week is ending and we're starting a new week as we're building towards that eclipse. Please be kind and gentle to yourself. Make sure you're drinking enough water, I have to say. I mean, there's such an abundance of fire energy here that water can be a nice counterbalance to it. But for all that, where we didn't realize we had wounds, now we may come to see it and have to accept it in some way. Where it was hard for us to look at the wounding that was done, we also have to look at the wounding that we did, intentionally or not. This is fire arising, which means a massive leap of consciousness, which means wrapping up the pain of several lifetimes over the span of moments so that we don't have to live those stories anymore. And choosing different, knowing we've moved on, well, that only happens when you find yourself connecting to a spirit of love. That is the only way you know that you're now on a new path. And for some of us who really care about being on a path of greater love and greater wisdom, I understand that there's layers, right? And one of those layers that might have kept us from the full embodiment of owning that journey could arise now. And for some, those layers are going to be more painful than for others. Regardless of where that awareness takes you, on the other side is a more healed version of yourself. A version of yourself that's able to be true and authentic and to be in your real, authentic, creative life force power. And from there, you become this agent of change. And you know you're on the right track if you're moving towards change that helps you and helps the world embody greater love and greater wisdom as well. Well, thank you so much for watching. What do you love about this week? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading you guys, and to prove it to you, here are some of my most recent favorite comments. Thank you to everybody who likes, who comments, who subscribes, who shares, who thumbs up. All of it means so much. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. And of course, if you want to know how all this wonderful stuff this week speaks to you in your sign, log on to NadiyaShahSuperstars.com, where you get expanded exclusive video scopes for as low as just $3 a month with choose your membership rate. Higher tiers get you things like all access passes to Synchronicity University events, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the superstar space at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com. Links are in the description below. Synchronicity University has an absolutely incredible May 2024. We have got all these courses that are designed to help you to tap into your astrological knowledge and wisdom and love and power and help you to maximize them that much more. These classes are filled with wisdom and they're also really entertaining, and we've got some really big dogs joining us as well. You've got just a few weeks left to choose your tuition rate with Synchronicity University's world famous choose your tuition rate on right now to the end of April. I'm going to start with my own course, and that is the definitive relationship course. I know I've been sharing with you a little bit about I've had, let's say, a crash course in all kinds of relationship techniques over the last 3.5 years after I left my long-term relationship. And I feel like my relationship astrology skills are at a better, higher level now. And so I have a lot to teach you, new techniques, new understandings, and I'm really looking forward to that. So this is the definitive relationship course. We'll be looking at love from the perspective of when love will arrive, when love will end, the synastry, the composite, what you need in love, how you express love, and the different parts of us that speak to how love comes forward. So you can see there's a lot we are going to be covering here, and it is a jam-packed course. I hope that you enjoy it. Now you've got just a little bit of time left to choose your tuition rate. As always, just $5 a class. to take the definitive relationship course taught by me this May at Synchronicity University. Links are in the description below. Renowned astrologer ALEJO LOPEZ is coming to Synchronicity University, teaching a super popular topic that a lot of people have been asking for. This is midpoints, aspects, and harmonics. This is going to be a jam-packed course, and it is ALEJO that is the perfect person to teach this. Now, ALEJO is a teacher with the Faculty of Astrological Education. This is one of the most renowned astrological schools on the planet. They go all the way back to the 40s. They have a summer school that's really famous that takes place in Oxford every year. And so, if ALEJO is teaching with the Faculty of Astrological Education, it's because he's that good. He is really that good. And he is going to be teaching many layers of understanding. So midpoints are a very powerful tool to use in prediction. I tell you, the interview that I did with him got me looking at my chart differently, got me looking at how I can incorporate midpoints a lot more as well. So he's already helped me in my astrological skills. I know that he's going to help a lot of people out there. And you know that when astrology chooses you, one lifetime is not enough to know all there is to know. And we are perpetually astrology students. And so I'm so grateful for him. In that conversation I had with him, he taught me so much. I love that he's become one of my teachers. He's also going to teach on aspects, in particular, what we might call minor aspects, but a lot of students have been asking to understand these other type of aspects like a quintile and a biquintile and a quincunx, and non-Ptolemaic aspects is what he's going to help you to understand with that much more depth and nuance so that you can start incorporating them into your practice very quickly. And harmonic charts as well, looking at different themes in life and how different charts reflect those themes, including happiness. He did a wonderful demonstration on that during the interview that we did together as well. So you might want to check that out. All of these is what ALEJO is going to teach you over 5 jam-packed weeks. This is the only place, Synchronicity University, the only place where you are going to learn from ALEJO for as low as just $5 a class. An unheard of rate to learn from the one and only ALEJO LOPEZ. Incredible topics to take your astrology to the next level. And you can go to synchronicityuniversity.com right now, learn more about each of the classes, and sign up. Links are in the description below. Synchronicity University is excited to represent to you a 5-week course taught by the one and only living legend, big dog astrologer, Michael Luton. And this course features his favorite techniques on analysis and prediction. Now, this was a course that Michael Luton taught just 2 years ago, and he has been kind enough to allow Synchronicity University to re-offer these classes at that very low $5 a class. And that is just so kind of him to do. You can also pick up some of the previous classes that he taught with us as well for that $5 a class. And so this is a package. They'll come to you as downloads. They'll be released on May the 1st. Up until then, up until the end of April, you can get them for as low as $5 a class. But the thing is, and the thing to know is, they are jam-packed with a lot of wisdom. There is so much that Michael Luton teaches in these classes. Now, this was the first time that Michael Luton, who's been practicing astrology for many, many, many decades, that he taught a class on Zoom. And so, yeah, you are going to get moments of seeing him frustrated, of seeing him trying to figure out this brand new technology to him. And so do be patient with those moments. But he does end up navigating those moments really well. The last 2 classes, I actually join him and end up helping to moderate those classes for him also. And so you'll get to see me in the last 2 classes. But yes, just please be patient with Michael Luton as you go through those recordings, because you do see him frustrated. But if you can look beyond that, my goodness, will you ever learn a lot. Now, Michael Luton is one of the only astrologers that I, as a professional astrologer, have paid to learn from. I have taken workshops with him that I have paid for the full price ticket. I've paid hundreds of dollars just to sit with him for half a day with other students. And every time I sit in one of his workshops, I come away a better astrologer. And so I can tell you from personal experience, you getting these downloads will make you a better astrologer if you choose to get one thing. Just by incorporating one of what you learn, you will find your astrological game stepping up as well. Now, in May, Michael Luton and I are going to do a live Q&A. So after you watch these, that is a bonus, right? You don't even have to pay for that. If you get this 5-class package, you don't even have to pay extra for that. But that's going to be moderated by me, and I'm going to be online with the one and only Michael Luton. And yeah, together we are going to go through your questions and what you might be asking and any points of clarification that you might have as well. So there's so much to look forward to. As low as just $5 a class to learn from the one and only Michael Luton, only at synchronicityuniversity.com. That I can say for sure. It is only at Synchronicity University that you are going to learn from Michael Luton at this rate. You get the downloads, you can learn from them infinitely, and you will automatically be signed up for the live Q&A. The date is to be announced. That'll be with Michael Luton and I. Learn a lot more. Sign up now. Links are in the description below. Synchronicity University has an absolutely incredible May 2024 speaker series. I am so excited about this group. I know that there's lots of astrological learning here, and for a very limited time, you can choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class. An unheard of rate to learn from this caliber of astrologer. And you know, if you've watched for a while, that with every speaker series, I try to get at least one big dog in there and take the up and coming superstars of astrology and sort of put them on the same playing field. And our big dog is a really big dog this speaker series. It is the one and only Gemini Brett. Gemini Brett, I mentioned him earlier. He is a superstar in astrology for a reason. He has this amazing way of teaching what he calls embodied astronomy, so that you fortify your connection to the sky quite literally, and that makes you a better astrologer. And it is Gemini that speaks and teaches in a way that is poetic, that just reaches the heart. That's the thing that makes his work so very special. And Gemini is going to be teaching on the void of course moon, which I think is a super popular topic. A lot of astrologers, students of astrologies always want to learn more about this. And so, yeah, he's the perfect person to teach it because he's going to help you to understand what happens in terms of the celestial phenomenon, but also what it means for you, how you can tap into the power of the void of course moon, and to do it in a way that only he can teach it. What a treat it is. What a privilege it is to have him at Synchronicity University as part of the May 2024 speaker series. We are going to have Shelly Stearns. Now, Shelly is one of my favorites. I know you've seen her on my channel so many times. And Shelly is going to be teaching on the second house, getting your money right. That's what the second house is about. Money you earn, money you spend. She's going to help you to understand that part of your chart so you can tap into it consciously towards your greater prosperity and so much more. Now, speaking of Chiron, Marcia Fervienza is going to be teaching about Chiron in astrology. How perfect to help us to understand this very sacred body that I love exploring as well. Now, Marcia is brilliant. She is widely known. She's been an American citizen for a really long time, but she was born in Brazil. I love celebrating Brazilian astrologers. You know, Brazil has a very dear place in my heart. And Maria is someone that I came to know even more as a result of our mutual friendship with Andy of Wise Ass Astrology. But yeah, she's like famous in Brazil. I'll tell you that. We're very lucky to have her teaching at Synchronicity University. And what a wonderful topic for her to bring. And I think that's going to be an amazing learning experience from one of the best out there. Timon Harwood is someone that you've seen on my channel before as well, because he presented at the Canadian Astrology Conference back in the fall of last year. Well, now Timon is coming to Synchronicity University, the triplicity of Earth. He's going to help us to tap into the power of Earth energy in your chart, regardless of what sign you are, your rising, your sun, your moon. He's going to help you to understand how Earth energy plays out in your chart, how to tap into it consciously, and understanding those 3 signs and how they may be speaking to your chart, and so much more. And Jesse Inisan is someone that you've seen on my channel before as well. And he's going to help us to understand astrology as art, as science. And he's going to give you lots of practical insights to actually make you a better astrologer as well, which is, I think, part of why we take these courses to begin with, and why I love having a school for amplifying astrological knowledge out there. Well, Jesse cares about all of that. And his class, yes, it has the poetic, but it also has the practical that you will be able to benefit from. So you can see here, it's an incredible May 2024 speaker series only at Synchronicity University. Oh my God, I'm so proud of this group of astrologers, big dogs and future superstars, all on the same stage, only at synchronicityuniversity.com. You've got just a couple weeks left to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class. Learn a lot more about each class and sign up now. Links are in the description below. And thank you. Thank you so much for this moment with you. Thank you for your trust. I'm so grateful for it. Now, of course, this eclipse is something I spoke of in the recent short video I posted for each sign. You get that there, but also in the monthly horoscope as well. So you may want to watch that again. For all that, I'm going to say, please take the best of care of you, of your emotions, of your peace as well. All of this sky is always. And thank you. Thank you so much for this moment with you. Thank you for your trust. I'm so grateful for it. This is a powerful time. And my hope is that we tap into the wisdom of it, because ultimately Chiron is about cultivating wisdom. I know that isn't going to be easy for everybody. I will say a quote from the one and only Gemini Brett. He said that we don't awaken from dreams. We awaken from nightmares. And nightmares are ultimately confronting pain, the things that have brought us pain, or the pain in the world. And it is awakening that isn't about denying its existence. It's about acknowledging how it does exist, and how we might awaken love within us as part of acknowledging the existence of what we would call nightmares. It is the motivation to change that is going to show up for a lot of us, and a lot of us are going to be feeling all kinds of things. So where you can, strive not to judge yourself or others, because I think that would be missing a real opportunity here to heal, to grow, to be better, to be something more, because that is a very special way in which the sky just might awaken us this week. It's intense, but it's also very hopeful. And if we can prioritize keeping our perspective on the hope, well, we just might find evidence of it in many places now. Thank you again for watching. I'm so very grateful for it. It'll be a great week. Enjoy.